Hello, Louise from the future here. I just wanted to quickly pop in at the start of this video and say that this video ended up being filmed over the span of like a few months, and then I sat on the footage for another few months. So the clip you're about to see, the first clip in this video, was filmed over 6 months ago. And I considered just binning this footage, but I think it's a fun, silly little video and I didn't want to, let it go to waste. So I'm going to give it to you and you can watch this silly little video, but just keep that in mind. Just don't keep it in mind. Just don't think about it. Just listen to what I'm saying, listen to what my thoughts on these books, and don't think too much about if my location changes, if my hair colour changes, etc, etc. Enjoy! Hello, my name's Louise and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I normally make videos about happiness, productivity and sustainability, but today I'm going to be making a slightly less serious video. I am a big fan of the StudyTube community and I follow a lot of the YouTubers who would class as StudyTubers, and one StudyTuber whose videos I've really been enjoying recently is Jack Edwards. He started making more bookish videos and I've really been enjoying them because they're really entertaining to watch. He normally reads books written by a certain author or by a certain type of author or in a certain genre, or he'll read books that a certain little celebrity has recommended. And I have noticed recently that a lot of the YouTubers that I follow have been releasing books again. I feel like there was a period about 5 years ago where a lot of YouTubers released books and they were known as like YouTuber books, and they've got various reviews, but a lot of YouTubers released books about 5 years ago, and then I feel like they stopped doing that and it became untrendy, or it became uncool to do that. And then recently, in the last year or so ago, a lot of the YouTubers who I watch have been releasing videos again. And a lot of these books I've been hesitant to buy because I think a lot of them I would just end up giving like 3 stars. They would be like middle of the road, and I was like, you know what, there are other books that I want to read more, I can't be bothered to read them, etc. Various reasons like that. So I just haven't got around to reading a lot of these books, but I've been curious about them and I've wanted to read them just out of curiosity because they are written by some of my favourite YouTubers. So I thought that it would be fun to make a video out of it and use this video as an excuse to read some of the books that I'm curious about. The only issue is that I'm a student and I don't have lots of money to spend on lots of books, so I went down to my local library and got myself a library card, which is very exciting. I had a library card back in my hometown, but since I moved to my university town, I haven't had a library card. So I'm very excited to have one of these again. It means I can read lots of books for free. So I have reserved a lot of these books that I want to read that are written by YouTubers because I just can't afford to buy like 10 different YouTuber books that I'm probably going to give average ratings to. So I've just reserved them all and I'm going to read them as they come in, which does mean that this video is probably going to take me a couple of months to film, but that's fine. There are lots of other books that I should be reading in the meantime. All of the books that I'm going to be talking about in this video are written by YouTubers who I love. In my opinion, there's no point reading a book by a YouTuber who I hate because obviously I'm going to give it a bad review. So I'm going to be talking about these books and I'm sure some of them I'm going to be critical about and I'm going to be like, oh, this is not the best book. But these are all written by YouTubers who I love and continue to love, and even if they write a bad book, it's not going to change my opinion of them. If I do criticise them, it won't be criticism of them as a person. I absolutely love all of these people. It will be criticism of their books. So without further ado, let's get started. When I picked up my library card, I managed to get a first book that they actually had in the library and that I didn't have to reserve. And this is An Edited Life by Anna Newton. Her YouTube channel is The Anna Edit. I have been watching Anna on and off for years. I absolutely love her personality. She is like calm and she's into minimalism and organisation, but she's also like bubbly and fun. I imagine that me and her would get on if there wasn't like a 10-year age gap between us. I could really imagine us being friends, but I have to admit that I haven't watched her channel consistently over the years because she makes a lot of content about beauty and makeup, and those are things that I'm just not that interested in anymore. I used to be. I definitely went for a phase where I would watch all of the makeup beauty YouTubers, but I don't really anymore, and so a lot of her videos are just reviewing different makeup brands, and so I don't really watch those videos, but I really like watching her organisation videos and her vlogs. And she released a book a couple of years ago called An Edited Life, which is all about organisation and minimalism and living an intentional life, which, if you know me, is like my favourite topic in the whole world. But the reason that I was hesitant to read this book and the reason that I didn't jump and buy it as soon as it came out was because I just assume that I will know everything in this book. I am very well versed in the topics of minimalism and living an intentional life, and I'm just assuming that she won't have anything to say that I don't already know. But as I say, I'm curious, and this video is just an excuse for me to read all of these books that I just haven't got around to reading yet. My first impression upon seeing this book is that there's a lot more words than I expected there to be. It is like a dense book, like there's just a lot of words, and I expected this book to have a lot more pictures. I'm not sure what that says about me or about this book, but that is my first impression. But I'm going to read this book and I will get back to you. Hello, so I have now finished reading An Edited Life. As I said, my main concern with this book was that there wasn't going to be anything in it that I didn't already know. And I have to admit that is kind of true, but it's hard for me to tell if that says more about the book and that it's basic, or if it says more about me and the fact that I already know a lot about self-help. And it's probably somewhere in the middle. Like, the tips in here are nothing wild, but I think they are really good. I think what this book does really well is that it talks a lot about mental organisation and why you should do these things, and therefore it doesn't feel superficial. It's not like, you know, here's how to fold your shirts and here's how to tidy your room and here's how to write a bullet journal. This book encourages a lot of introspection, and it asks you to question things, and, you know, but at the same time it does also give really practical tips. You know, it's like, here's how to budget, and it goes through how to budget in a way that is very like ABC, a recipe guide, but just before that it will talk about like the benefits of budgeting and why you should budget and who should budget and that kind of thing. So I think this book does do a really good job of talking about these topics, because I think it just knows like the right level of depth to go to. But did I gain much from this book? No, not really. I didn't learn anything, but I will say this book just gave me a new motivation for organisation. I've been struggling a lot with organisation recently, I have to admit, because of my mental health and the lockdown, etc. So it was nice to read a book and to be reminded of how wonderful organisation can be and how great it can be to feel organised. And so it's definitely given me like a renewed sense of motivation. What I will say though is that there's a lot of chapters in this book where Anna gives lists. So for example, this chapter is like how to save money, and then there are things like stop buying coffee from coffee shops, don't pay for your gym membership if you're not using it, don't buy upgrades if you don't need them, don't pay for subscriptions that you don't use, get sales savvy, be a loyal customer and use Advantage cards. And what I noticed myself doing in those chapters is, if you can see, there's like each paragraph has like that heading that I just read out loud, and then there's a little mini paragraph about it. But I found that actually I wasn't reading the text, and I can't decide how I feel about it, because on the one hand it feels like kind of filler content and it feels like this page could have literally just been a bullet pointed list, but on the other hand I'm like, if that had been something that you struggle with in particular, you might want to read more about it. And you know, and they are like very chatty, friendly anecdotes in some places, so I can't decide how I feel about that, because on the one hand I'm like, I skipped a lot of the like fluffier writing, but on the other hand it kind of is good that it's there, and it's better to have it there than not be there. But yeah, this book is only like 250 pages long, but it's huge, but I think that's because it's made from really nice quality paper. I will give it that. So that is my review of An Edited Life. Would I recommend it? I would recommend it if you don't have your life together. If you do have your life together, I feel like you're not going to get much out of this book. That's my shady review. Hello! Since I last filmed a clip for this video, I have moved house, hence why I'm in a different bedroom. But today I have some books to show you. I went to the library and I had ordered 2 books, and they have arrived. So these are the books that we're next going to be reading. I have The Uni-verse by Jack Edwards, which obviously Jack is the person who inspired this video, so I'm very excited to read this book. The reason that I haven't read this book up until now is because I am already a university student, and this is aimed at like 6th formers, people about to start university, and I figured that this book firstly wouldn't have anything of value to me because I've already survived freshers, and secondly I was worried that this book would be kind of triggering, because freshers is an awkward time. You know, you're thrown into this new environment, you're trying to make friends, and it's inevitably going to be awkward and cringy, and I was worried that this book would be kind of triggering in a way and remind me of things that happen in freshers that I just wanted to blank out. But we're going to give it a chance, and I'm going to let you know what I think about this. And then the other book that I have is Zoella's Cordially Invited, which I think Jack Edwards read in one of his reviewing YouTuber books. And basically most people's conception of this book seems to be that it's just so basic. For example, there's literally instructions in here about how to make a paper chain and about how to make like chocolate Rice Krispie nest cakes. But it'll be fun to flick through. I reckon I'll just spend an hour or two flicking through it. and we'll see what we think. And then also, those 2 books I had ordered, but when I got to the library, sitting on the shelf in front of me was this book, which I wasn't sure I was going to read for this video, but seeing as it was sat there in front of me, I decided to just pick it up. This is Working Hard, Hardly Working by Grace Beverley, who is I think she's deleted her YouTube channel now, but she used to be a YouTuber, hence why I'm putting it in this video. And she used to talk about fitness and productivity and being a student, and then she set up her own businesses, and now she focuses on like being a businesswoman and running her businesses. But she's written this book about productivity and her takes on it, so I thought I'd give it a read. I think my concern going into this book is that, I don't really know how to phrase this, I very much have the conception that Grace Beverley's success has come off the back of her being an influencer, which is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. She set up some successful businesses, but a huge part of the reason for the success of her businesses has been her, and the fact that she was an influencer prior to starting those businesses. And that's what really helped to kickstart those businesses. You know, even if they become bigger than her, that is what helped to kickstart them. And I worry that this book is going to be her telling us how to start a business, when really the reason that her businesses are doing so well is because she was an influencer. So for her, oh, what's happened to the colour? So if she tries to claim that, you know, she's put in 80 hours a week and it's all because of some particular productivity technique, then I'm going to be sceptical, but we'll give it a read and see what we think. So I've just finished reading, I don't even know if I can call it reading, flicking through Cordially Invited by Sugg. I just spent an hour or so just flicking through it and like reading some of the pages and looking at the different recipes and things. And I have to admit, I was disappointed. I was really hoping that I was going to find like 3 or 4 recipes or DIYs in here that I could like take photos of and try later. And really I didn't. There really aren't any recipes or things in here that I am like eager to try. There are loads of really great recipes in here, but they're not vegan. And to be fair, to give them credit, there are, with a lot of these recipes, there are like suggestions of how to make it vegan. So for example, they talk about making coronation chicken sandwiches, and they're like, if you're vegan, you can make coronation chickpea sandwiches instead. And there are lots of little things like that, but as someone who is mostly vegan, if I was looking for recipes to cook, I wouldn't come here, I would just go to a vegan cookbook. Why would I choose to make recipes that aren't going to be as good as ones that were meant to be vegan? And then they are just really basic. They are just painfully basic is the problem. I really like how it's divided up into seasons, and it is a gorgeous book. Like, every page is glossy, there are giant photos everywhere. However, I remember Zoella sharing in one of her vlogs that they did like some photo shoots for it, and it is almost a bit painfully obvious that all of these things are from photo shoots, which I know is going to be true, but it's just a bit too painfully obvious. There's a couple of, especially in summer, like the summery months, you can see that they've just done one photo shoot and then they're using the same photos for every single page. Like, you can tell that the photos on almost every page were taken on the same day, and that just feels a bit painful to me. I think it would have been better if they'd done like 2 or 3 photo shoots for each one, or made more of an effort, even if they were going to do it in the same day, made more of an effort to have like 2 or 3 sets or scenes. Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about, I don't really have anything bad to say about this book. It is very non-offensive and it's hard to hate on it, but I don't really have much good to say about it either, and I probably wouldn't recommend it. And it's sad because I love Zoella. I am not someone who's going to sit here and talk shit about Zoella, because I really love her vlogs. I enjoy watching her do mundane things on the internet. So I would probably give this like 2.5, 3 stars. It's okay, but there's nothing amazing about it, and there's nothing that makes me want to recommend it to you. Hello, I'm sat at my desk and I have just finished reading The Uni-verse by Jack Edwards. I was pleasantly surprised by this book. When I'm like reviewing a book or thinking about what to rate it on Goodreads, I usually ask myself, is this book doing what it set out to do? And yes, I don't think this book could have been much better at what it's trying to do. This book is a really friendly, accessible, inviting guide to university. It's very comprehensive. It goes through everything from like how to revise for your A-levels, how to deal with clearing, what to buy for university, some simple recipes, whether you should go to university in London or not, how to read an electricity meter. Like, it's very comprehensive, and I think it does cover everything you need to know to get through your first month or 2 of university. And so I can't complain about that. I could imagine if I was like the head of a sixth form handing this out to all students and being like, here's what you need. And if you're a sixth form student who's about to go to university, or you're considering if you want to go to university or not, I really would recommend reading this book. The only slight hesitation I had with this book was that Jack Edwards talks about partying a lot. Not a lot, but he does have a whole section about like socializing, and talks about like pub golf and dressing up. And for me personally, those are things that I was never really interested in. I enjoy going out with my friends and I enjoy clubbing. I've talked about this before. I don't know if I've talked about it on my YouTube channel before, but you know, I enjoy clubbing under the right circumstances. I enjoy going with my friends, but I have no desire for like dressing up, getting absolutely smashed, trying to win competitions. I don't enjoy drinking games. And so for me, those things were things that I was scared about when I came to university. And what I realised when I came to university is that I don't have to engage in those things if I don't want to. But Jack Edwards does talk about those things. He does say, you know, don't ever let anyone pressure you into drinking and doing things you don't want to do. But I think it's easy for people to think that that kind of social life is an integral part of university and you're missing out if you don't have that. And I don't think that's true. And I think he could have made a slightly bigger point about that. But otherwise, that was the only thing that like grated me slightly. Otherwise, I think I'm going to give this book 4 stars out of 5. Now, I know what you're thinking. I just said it was great, but it just doesn't quite feel like a 5-star read to me. I think what would have elevated this book to be 5 stars to me would be some more in-depth essay-style reflections on things like social life and whether you need to do them or not. Things like drinking and the drinking culture at university. Things like diversity at university. He does talk about those things, but he talks about them in a very bullet pointed way, and I think it would have been interesting to see some more nuanced essay style discussions of those topics. I'm not saying this book needs that. This book is fine without those things, and this book is very much something that you could give out in a secondary school for those reasons, and I'm not sure it would be if it talked more about things like that. But and clearly Jack Edwards has tried to make this, and clearly Jack has tried to make this a very like PG friendly book, but I think what could have made this book incredible would have been those more nuanced essays about life at university. But yeah, I have to say, I'm very impressed by this book, and and you can really see Jack's personality in it. There's loads of puns. I could really hear his voice while reading it, which I thought was nice. I really hope that one day Jack gets to write some fiction like he talks about, because I would love to read Jack's fiction. I know he said that, you know, he's proud of this book, but it is ultimately just like a guide, and that what he's really interested and passionate about is fiction. So I really hope that he does get to publish some fiction one day, and that we get to read it, because I would love to read something that he writes that he's really super passionate about. Hello, it is a Saturday morning and I have just finished reading Grace Beverley's Working Hard, Hardly Working. I really enjoy reading on like a weekend morning. It's a nice like calm activity. It's now like midday, and I've been awake for a while, but I've just spent the last couple of hours reading this. So I thought I would give you my review while I put on my makeup for the day. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I think I'm going to give this book 3 stars. I really wanted to give it 4 stars, but I think in the end, I have a mirror over here, that's why I'm looking over here. I think in the end I'm going to give it 3 stars, because I'm like, would I recommend this? Maybe not. As I said, my hesitation going into this book was that it was going to be written, was going to be someone who, you know, has been an influencer and has made their success by being an influencer, which is nothing wrong with that, but, you know, telling people how to work hard and how to be productive, and I was a bit unsure about that. But actually Grace is very self-aware of that, which I think is a good thing. And I actually found this book quite interesting. It's talking about productivity and hustle culture, but I think it actually does it in a really interesting way. The main premise in this book is Grace talking about how, as like Generation Z, or whatever you want to call it, we are simultaneously like hustle culture, let's go do everything, overworking, overachieving people, but simultaneously we are, you know, burnt out and lazy. And she's saying, instead of like trying to decide which one we are, let's accept that we are both and let's talk about it. And I think that's a really interesting take on it. She's like, yes, we as a generation, we are burnt out, but there's a reason for it, and she talks about that. You know, no wonder we're burnt out when we're trying to do all of these things at once, when the prices of houses has like quadrupled since our parents' age, you know, and we have all these expectations of the fact that we should be able to work 8 hours a day and then be able to afford a house and have kids and save for retirement, and how that just isn't really the case at the moment. And so she talks about how our expectations are warped and how that's led us to become simultaneously burnt out and at the same time overachievers. She talks about how the pandemic, it makes sense that as soon as we hit this pandemic, we all were like, oh my god, we have to use all this extra time because we've been trained to see time as this commodity which we shouldn't waste. And so when the pandemic hit and a lot of us found ourselves with a lot more time on our hands, she says it's no wonder that we tried to fill that time with productivity and starting our own businesses and making money, you know? So firstly, I thought that was really interesting. I think it's a more nuanced discussion of productivity than you see in most books. And I also just think Grace did a good job of talking about productivity because she talks about tips and ways of being more productive that are really well researched. So she spent a whole chapter talking about this idea known as flow, which was invented by this Polish guy. I'm not going to try and say his name, but I've read about his work before. And so the tips that she gives are really solid and they're based on research, and it isn't just shallow. There's lots of deep tips about how to really engage and be more productive. However, the issue I have with it is that it just could have been much shorter. She repeats herself so many times, and she, like, for lack of a better word, waffles on a lot about very similar things, and she'll, you know, reword the same point over and over again. And I see what she was trying to do in trying to, like, frame the same thing in different ways and trying to emphasize certain things that are really important, but it was just a bit annoying. I really feel like the book could have been half as long, and then that makes me wonder why it was written in the first place. Is that really rude? I do think it's a good book. I found myself flicking through the pages. But again, I don't know if that says more about her or if it says more about me and the fact that I already know so much about these kinds of topics, you know? Maybe it does just say that I already know too much about these topics. I think someone coming into this would find value in it if they didn't already know a lot of these things, you know? She does really clearly explain a lot of concepts that if you didn't know before are helpful. She spends most of the book talking about productivity and self-care and where the balance is and when to be productive and when to relax. I mean, the book is called Working Hard, Hardly Working, and she talks about how to know the balance of when to work hard and when to hardly work. And I think that was really well done. She talks about how, you know, there is no defined answer. You need to decide it for yourself, but you need to be honest with yourself and you need to be tough on yourself, like tough self-love, which I thought was really interesting. She described this many times, which again is kind of the issue, but I think the best way that she described it was she talked about the whole pouring from a cup analogy, and everyone else says that you can't pour from an empty cup. And she says you need to learn the difference between, you know, is your cup full and you're just being too lazy to pour from it, or is your cup empty and you need to replenish it, and learning, you know, which one you're looking at. And sometimes your cup is full and you just don't want to pour from it, and that's fine, you know, but the answer is she was saying that you need to just be honest with yourself. You need to set goals that are realistic, and she tells you how to do that, and then you need to be honest with yourself about how to achieve them, you know. And I think she does a very good job of that, talking about how to realistically set goals, how to be honest with yourself, how to balance working hard and hardly working. I think she did a very good job of that. My main criticism is that I think the book could have been half as long, and I think for that reason I'm going to give it 3 stars. Hello, I'm currently sat on my floor. If you can hear screaming children, it's because I live near a school, but I'm using my lapel mic, so hopefully that means the mic won't pick up too much of the screaming children. But anyway, I have picked up the next 2 books for this video. I picked them up yesterday. We have Melanie Murphy's books. Melanie Murphy is a YouTuber who I love. She makes like lifestyle content. She talks all about being a woman and sexuality and lifestyle and healthy habits and yeah, I think she just delivers those things really well. She just had a baby, so now she makes a lot of like mother content, but I still love her channel. And so I thought it would be really interesting to read her 2 books. This one here called Fully Functioning Human, almost. This was released in 2017. And my only major concern is that it's going to be like dated. This feels very typical of when you picked like a YouTuber book. This is what I think of. It's like a biographical memoir. I have my concerns, but I thought it would be interesting to read. I probably wouldn't have picked it up if I wasn't doing this video, but that's the whole point in doing this video, is that it's a good excuse to read these kind of books. And then this one is called If Only, which is a novel, a fiction book. Firstly, it's huge. Like, they've printed it with really large font. I don't know if you can see. They definitely could have made this a smaller book, because like, compare the sizes of these books. This one is a small book, and this one is a big book. Like, they are the extremes of printing novels, because this one is printed in a really small font. I'm like, why could they not have met somewhere in the middle? Anyway, I have heard really good things about this book, and I'm really intrigued to read it. I think it could be a bit like basic, but yeah, I've heard really good things about this book, and I'm intrigued to read it. I think it's going to be quite similar to Matt Haig's Midnight Library. It's a very similar thing to that, where this woman owns a pendant that she can use to experience like parallel universes, different, you know, if she'd done something different in her life. She says to this necklace, if only I'd done this, and then she gets to experience that life. So I think it will be quite similar to that. But I'm interested to see. I think it could be like a bit basic, but it is just meant to be women's light-hearted fiction. So yeah, those are the 2 books that I'm going to read this week. And then I think that will probably be it for this video. Okay, so it is about a week later, and I have now read these 2 books, so I thought I would give you my reviews of them. Let's start with Fully Functioning Human, almost. This book is exactly what I thought it would be. It is a memoir, self-help book from someone who was about, I think she was like 25 or so when she wrote this book. The intro to this book is a chaotic mess. I feel like that could have been done better, but otherwise it was an okay book. However, the main thing with this book is that it just felt dated. Like, it probably would have been a good book had I read it in 2016, 2017, but I feel like it's just such a typical YouTuber book that reading it now, it does feel cliche and cringy. The other thing that I wanted to say about this book is that this book talks a lot about eating disorders, which for me, as someone who's never suffered from an eating disorder, I found really interesting, and I learned lots of things from it. Melanie has been through various different types of eating disorders. She talked about how, like, she went through one eating disorder and then almost that like morphed into another and morphed into another. So she's experienced a couple, and she talks about like how they affected her and how she overcame them and things. And as I say, as someone who hasn't experienced it, I found it really interesting. However, I do worry that the way that she's talked about it could be triggering for someone who is struggling with that at this moment. For example, she talks about orthorexia, and why it's bad and how she overcame it. And then a few pages later, she gives a list of like healthy foods that I always have in my kitchen. And I just, I don't know. I just would say proceed with caution. I think Melanie was obviously not trying to do that. Like, she's been through this herself. She knows that she doesn't want to make an account that's triggering. She wanted to make an account that was helpful for people. But she is very open and honest. So if that's something you are sensitive to reading, then proceed with caution. However, otherwise, I thought it was a reasonably good book. Would I recommend it? No, but would I put this in a time capsule and recommend it to people 5 years ago? Maybe. So, yeah. But then, If Only, which was a fiction book, I really liked. This is probably one of the best fiction books I've read this year. Well, they're saying that I haven't actually read that many fiction books this year. Most of the books I've read this year have been non-fiction. But this was pretty good. I feel like this will be a really good, like, holiday, lightweight read. It's not that, I say lightweight, it's like the biggest book in Century, but emotionally and mentally light. It's pretty easy to read. It has like interesting, lovable characters. There's lots of chatting, and there's romance, there's adventure. Like, it really is all of those things. I think this will make a great holiday read. But then it also had some like deeper elements to it. There were 1 or 2 sentences, especially towards the end, that really made me like choke up. And I think Melanie Murphy's done a good job of creating a book that is overall, you know, a very light, easy to read book, but does include a few deeper messages. She has a new fiction book coming out, I think either later this year or early 2022, called Glass Houses, which is about social media, I believe. And so having read this, I'm very excited to read that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this book, especially as there is a holiday read, that kind of thing. So I also realised that I never actually filmed an outro for this video, so you get Louise from the future again to film an outro for you. So my overall thoughts on these books are that, to be honest, I don't think any of them were amazing, especially having sat on this footage for a while. I don't think any of these books are, you know, particularly brilliant. But as you can see, a lot of them I gave 3 or 4 stars. They're not bad books, and I might recommend them in particular circumstances. For example, someone about to go to university, I might recommend Jack Edwards' book. Someone trying to get their life together, I might recommend Anna's book. They're not bad books and they have their time and place, but I don't think any of them blew me away. I still think the best YouTuber book I've ever read is Note to Self by Connor Ferranta. I've not read that in a while, so maybe it was just my teen brain being like, oh my god, this is so good. But that's the only YouTuber book that I've ever read that I truly loved. But yeah, this is just a long way of saying that I thought these books were good, but I didn't think any of them were amazing. However, as I said, I was still intrigued to read all of these books and I had fun filming this video. Like I said, the books I picked were all from YouTubers who I watch and love. I didn't pick books from random YouTubers, I picked books from the YouTubers that I have watched over the years. And I will continue to keep reading YouTuber books. Actually, since the last clip you saw, I've already read a couple more books by my favourite YouTubers because my favourite YouTubers have brought out books and obviously I've read them. So if you would like a part 2 to this video, that could happen. I could probably come up with another 5 or 6 books to read. So let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video and if you would like to see that. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this gave you a bit of insight into what these books are like and whether you should actually bother picking them up or not. Thank you for watching. My name is Louise, and if you want to learn more about me, you can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Louise's Life.